My name is Thomas Reed. I spent 30 years working as a firefighter. My job was simple but dangerous. I pulled people out of buildings that were on fire. I used heavy tools to cut open cars that had been crushed in accidents. I saw people on the worst days of their lives. I am a practical man. I work with my hands. I understand how tools work, how water pressure works, and how strong a building needs to be so it doesn't fall down. I know how fire breathes and moves. I know how steel bends when it gets too hot. I was never a man who believed in ghost stories. I wasn't very spiritual. I went to church on Sundays because my wife wanted me to go. I mostly went to keep the peace in my house and to say hello to my neighbors. Usually, while the pastor was talking, I was thinking about the Chicago Bears football game or the leaky faucet I needed to fix at home. I never thought I would be the guy recording a message like this. I never thought I would be the one warning people, but I have no choice. What happened to me was not a dream. It wasn't my imagination playing tricks on me because of the accident or the medicine. It was real. It was more real than this keyboard I am typing on. It was more real than the air you are breathing right now. It happened on February 12th, 2024. It was a Monday night. I was driving home on the highway just outside of Chicago. The rain was coming down very hard. It was a cold, miserable winter rain. The water made the road look like a sheet of black glass. I couldn't see very far in front of me. I wasn't driving fast, but the road was very dangerous. I hit a large puddle of water. When your car hits water like that, it's called hydroplaning. It is a feeling you never forget. The steering wheel snapped in my hands. It became useless. I couldn't steer the truck anymore. I remember the feeling of sliding. It is a helpless, sick feeling. The tires were not touching the road anymore. I was just a passenger in my own car, moving toward my death. The world spun around. I saw the bright lights of a big truck coming toward me. It missed me by only a few inches. Then I hit a huge oak tree on the side of the road. The passenger side of my truck hit the tree first. I remember the sound of the metal crushing. It sounded like a loud scream, like a wounded animal. I remember the glass from the windows breaking. It fell on me like rain. And then there was silence. The pain didn't last long. In fact, it went away instantly. 1 second, I was crushed inside my truck. My chest was broken. I could smell the gasoline and the wet dirt and the metallic smell of my own blood. The next second, I was standing outside of the truck. The rain was still falling, but it went right through me. I didn't get wet. I didn't feel the cold wind. I looked at the wreck of my truck. It was destroyed. You couldn't even tell what kind of car it was. I saw my own body inside. I was slumped over the steering wheel. It looked like an empty suit that someone had thrown away. I should have been scared. I should have been screaming for my wife. I should have been calling for help. But I wasn't afraid. I felt a strange, heavy peace. The highway disappeared. The flashing lights of the other cars disappeared. The darkness of the night didn't get darker. It just dissolved away. I felt a pull. It felt like the ocean tide dragging me out to sea, but it wasn't water. It was light. I was moving, but I wasn't walking. The gray, gloomy weather of February vanished. It was replaced by a color I cannot name. It was something between gold and bright fire. It was warm, but it didn't burn. It felt heavy, like a warm blanket, but it didn't trap me. And then I felt him. I didn't see him walk toward me. He was just suddenly there. It was Jesus. I wish I could tell you he looked like the pictures in the church I grew up in. I wish I could say he had perfectly combed hair and soft robes, but he didn't. He looked like reality. He looked like the ground you stand on, solid, old, and unmovable. He looked like a man who worked with his hands, like a carpenter. His hands looked rough and strong. His eyes were not angry, but they were serious. They were deep, like looking into the bottom of the ocean. When he looked at me, I felt everything I had ever done. I felt every selfish thing. I remembered every time I ignored my wife. I remembered every time I was angry for no reason. I remembered every time I took the easy way out. Everything was open to him, but he didn't turn away from me. He looked at me with love. It was a love that felt heavy and real. It was a love that knew everything bad about me, but stayed anyway. He didn't speak with a mouth. His voice echoed inside my chest. It vibrated through my whole body. "Thomas," he said, "you have spent your life saving people's bodies from fires, but you have let your own spirit drift into the cold." I fell to my knees. I wasn't afraid, but I was amazed. I knew I was dead. I knew my life on earth was finished. And to be honest, I was happy. I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay there. The peace felt so good, but he reached out his hand. He didn't do it to welcome me home. He did it to steady me. You cannot stay, he told me. I felt crushed. I was so disappointed. I wanted to stay in that light forever. There is a different kind of fire burning on the earth, he said. It is destroying my people. It is not a fire that burns with heat. It is a fire of coldness. You must see it. The beautiful light began to fade. It didn't turn black. It turned into a gray, misty view of the world. It was like looking through a dirty window or a camera lens covered in grease. The warmth went away and I felt a damp chill. He showed me a living room. It looked like a million other living rooms in America. A family was sitting there. There was a father, a mother, and 2 teenagers. They were physically together in the same room. They were breathing the same air. They were sitting on the same couch, but they were miles apart. Each one of them was staring into a glowing rectangular screen in their hands. The room was completely silent. There was no laughter. There was no talking. There was no connection between them. The only light in the room came from the screens. It cast a ghostly blue color on their faces. I saw a gray mist rising from their screens. It curled around their wrists like handcuffs. It drifted up to cover their mouths and their eyes. It was subtle, like cigarette smoke, but it was trapping them. Jesus stood beside me. I could feel his sadness. It was very deep. Look, he said, they are together, but they are alone. They have traded the warmth of a human soul for the cold light of a machine. They are here in body, but their spirits are lost in a digital, empty space. Then the floor of the living room fell away. The vision got bigger. I saw a playground in the middle of a neighborhood. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. The birds were singing, but the swings were empty. The slide was not being used. I looked closer and saw the children. They were sitting on the benches. They were hunched over tablets and phones. Their little faces were lit up by the fake glow of the screens. Their eyes were moving back and forth very fast. They were consuming colors and sounds quickly. Above their heads, I saw the gray mist forming a thick cloud. It cut them off from the sky. It cut them off from the birds and the grass. They are forgetting how to play, Jesus said. His voice sounded painful. They are being trained to consume things, not to create things. Their imaginations are being covered up by computer rules. They do not look at the real clouds. They look at fake clouds on a screen. They do not learn how the world works by falling down and getting back up. They only learn the rules of the screen where nothing is heavy. The scene changed to a classroom. A teacher stood at the front. She looked very tired and defeated. She was trying to teach history. She was trying to talk about truth and the great thinkers of the past. But the students were not looking at her. They were looking at screens hidden under their desks. Some had them openly on their laps. I saw the air in the room filled with noise. It wasn't noise you could hear with your ears. It was spiritual static. Thousands of messages, videos, and alerts were buzzing through the air like invisible bees. The students were looking up answers, but they weren't learning anything. They were just finding information that agreed with what they already thought. I saw truth being cut up into tiny little pieces. It had no context. It had no wisdom. They mistake data for understanding, he whispered. They have all the knowledge of the world in their hands, but their hearts are drying up. They do not look for the truth. They look for the answer that makes them feel right. They have lost the patience to learn. Then the vision changed to a huge library. The shelves were full of books. There were old books, books of scripture, books of poetry, and books of history, but no one was reading them. People were running past the shelves. They were out of breath and in a hurry. They were stopping at a wall covered in sticky notes. Each note had just a sentence or two on it. Things like 5 ways to get rich, or why you should be angry today, or look at this funny cat. The people were ripping these notes off the wall and eating them. They were ignoring the deep, wise books just inches away. They have traded the feast for the crumbs, Jesus said. They cannot handle the meat of truth, so they choke on the dust of simple opinions. They run away from deep things because deep things require silence, and they are terrified of silence. Then I saw a busy city street. It was crowded with people. It could have been New York or Chicago, but no one was looking up. They were walking with their heads down. They looked like they were praying, but they weren't. They were submitting to the devices in their hands in a parade of monks, but their god was a phone. I watched a woman trip and fall hard on the concrete. She was hurt. Blood ran from her knee. The people around her didn't rush to help her. Instead, 3 of them lifted their phones. They weren't calling for an ambulance. They were recording a video. I saw the spirit of the woman on the ground cry out for comfort. She wanted a human hand to help her. But she was only met with glass camera lenses. "They have forgotten how to feel," Jesus said. His voice sounded like a wave hitting a rock. "They watch suffering, but they do not touch it. They turn pain into content to share. They have become spectators of their own lives. To them, her pain is not a reason to show mercy. It is just a moment to post online." The vision dissolved into a dark office. Rows of cubicles stretched out far. In each one, a person sat in blue light. They were typing and clicking. I saw their souls. They looked pale and see-through. A cable ran from the back of their necks into the wall. It was draining their energy and their creativity. It was taking their life force and feeding it into a massive machine that I couldn't see. They were working, but they were disconnected from what they were making. They were just processing data, day after day. The gray mist swirled around their feet like cold fog. "They work for things that do not satisfy them," Jesus said. "They trade their days for numbers on a screen. They are locked in boxes. They forget the wind and the sun. They are building kingdoms of dust that the wind will blow away." The scene shifted again. It was darker this time. I saw a young girl, maybe 14 years old. She was sitting on the edge of her bed. The room was dark, lit only by the blue glow of her phone. She was looking at a photo of herself, but she was changing it. She was sliding her finger across the screen. She was making her waist thinner. She was making her eyes bigger. She was making her skin look perfect. As she did this, I saw a black sludge coming out of the phone. It went into her chest. It was eating away at her heart. She looked in a mirror on her wall and began to cry. She hated the face God gave her because it didn't match the lie she had created on the screen. "They trade the truth of their creation for a digital lie," he whispered. "They are starving for approval from strangers who do not know their names. I know the number of hairs on their heads, and I am waiting in the silence, but they refuse to enter it. They are editing their souls away." Then I saw a restaurant. It was a nice place with candles on the tables. A couple sat across from each other. They were beautiful people, dressed up for a date. But there was a wall of glass between them. They weren't looking into each other's eyes. They were looking at their phones. They were swiping through pictures of other people. I saw the man swiping right and left. He was treating human souls like products in a catalog. I saw the woman checking to see who looked at her story online. She was ignoring the real story sitting across from her. The air between them was freezing cold. The gray mist was freezing their hearts. "They have turned love into a product," Jesus said sternly. "They shop for people like they are shopping for shoes. They look for the perfect image and throw away the human reality. They do not know how to commit. They do not know how to endure. They do not know how to love someone who has flaws. They want the good feeling without the sacrifice. They want the resurrection without the cross." I was then taken to a dark room that smelled like stale air. A young man sat in a fancy chair wearing a headset. On the screen in front of him, he was controlling a soldier. He was shooting and destroying things. The graphics looked very real, but the young man didn't flinch. His heart rate didn't go up. He was numb to the violence. Then the screen flickered. I saw a different room, thousands of miles away. A real soldier sat in a trailer, controlling a drone. He pressed a button, and on his screen, a real building exploded. Real people died. The 2 men, the gamer and the soldier, looked exactly the same. The line between the game and the war had vanished. "They practice death for entertainment," Jesus said. His voice was heavy with judgment. "They harden their hearts to blood until it becomes a game. They kill from a distance where they cannot hear the screams. They call it clean. But no death is clean to me." Then the vision opened up to a huge canyon. It was endless. Standing on the cliffs were millions of people. They were screaming across the canyon at the people on the other side, but there was no bridge. Strange glass walls rose up from the deep. They were shouting, but they couldn't hear what the other side was saying. They only heard their own echoes coming back to them, louder and twisted. "The echo chamber," Jesus said. "They surround themselves with voices that sound exactly like their own. They have lost the ability to listen. They have lost the humility to be wrong. They think they are shouting truth, but they are only shouting pride." Then I saw a marketplace. It was loud and busy, but they weren't selling fruit or clothes. They were selling pieces of themselves. I saw a man give away his privacy for a free app. I saw a woman give away her secrets for a moment of attention. I saw children giving away their future memories for a toy. Shadowy figures bought it all. They took these pieces of soul and fed them into a great furnace. They sell their birthright for a bowl of soup, Jesus said. They do not value the holiness of their own lives. They give everything to the machine, and the machine gives them back nothing but advertisements. Then I saw a massive banquet hall. It stretched for miles. Millions of people sat at the tables, but there was no food on the plates. Instead, there were cables and wires running from the table into their mouths. They were eating noise. Headlines, arguments, rumors, scandals, and gossip. I saw what it was made of. It looked like dry dust and ash. They swallowed it fast, but they only got thinner. Their skin turned gray. They were starving to death while they ate. They are hungry for truth, Jesus said, but they feed on confusion. They are full, yet they are empty. They stuff themselves with information but die because they lack wisdom. They are spiritually starving in a world full of content. The vision moved again. This time I saw something that made my firefighter instincts react. I saw two men standing in a field. They were screaming at each other. Their faces were red with anger. I looked closer and saw that they were tied by invisible strings. The strings led up into a dark cloud above them. The cloud was pulsing with computer codes. It was feeding them reasons to hate. One man would get a shock from the cloud, a headline or a soundbite, and he would attack the other. They thought they were fighting for justice, but they were just puppets in a show they didn't understand. My children tear one another apart over words written by machines, Jesus said. They do not know their neighbor, yet they hate him. They have allowed the enemy to whisper into their ears through the glowing glass. It turns brothers into enemies. They fight wars they did not start, for masters they do not see. I wanted to look away, but he wouldn't let me. The scene changed to a church. It was a large, beautiful building. The music was loud. The lights were professional. The pastor stood on stage, preaching with passion. But I saw he wasn't looking at the people. He was looking past them at a camera lens at the back of the room. He was performing. In the seats, the people were checking their watches and their phones. The Holy Spirit was there, hovering near the ceiling, like a gentle wind waiting to come down, but there was no room for him. The air was too thick with distraction. The worship was for the algorithm, not for God. They gather in my name, he said, but they bring the world in with them. They check for the approval of men while standing in the house of God. They have made worship into a show and they leave unchanged. They want a viral moment, not a holy moment. Then the ground opened up. I saw what looked like a giant underground silo. Millions of people were floating in glass tubes. They were suspended in a thick, clear gel. They had goggles on their eyes and plugs in their ears. They thought they were running through meadows or fighting dragons or falling in love. But in reality, they were naked, alone, and not moving. They were being fed a fake world while their real bodies grew weak. The gray mist here was so thick it was liquid. It filled the tubes. They prefer the dream to the reality, Jesus said. They build worlds where they are gods because they are afraid to live in the world where they are servants. They are asleep, Thomas, deeply asleep. Then I saw a garden. It should have been beautiful, but the flowers were made of plastic. The trees were holograms. The grass was fake turf. People were walking through it, taking pictures. They were marveling at the perfection. "It never dies," they shouted. "It's always perfect." But there was no smell. There was no oxygen. There was no life. A real flower grew up through a crack in the plastic. It was wilted and imperfect. A person walked by, saw the real flower, looked disgusted, and stomped on it. They fear death so much they have abolished life, Jesus said. They want a world without decay, without pain, and without mess. But without those things, there is no growth. They have created a sterile cage and called it paradise. I saw a massive clock ticking loudly. People were strapped to the hands of the clock. They were running and sweating. They were panicking. They were trying to use every second perfectly. They were listening to podcasts at double speed. They were watching videos in 15-second clips. They were multitasking, doing 3 things at once. But they weren't moving forward. They were just spinning in circles. They have lost the rhythm of grace, Jesus said. They run faster and faster, but they arrive nowhere. They have forgotten how to wait. They have forgotten that a seed takes time to grow. Then I saw a courtroom. But there was no judge, and there was no jury. Just a mob of people. A person stood in the center, trembling. Someone shouted an accusation. It didn't matter if it was true. The mob attacked instantly. They tore the person apart with words. They canceled them. They erased them. There was no trial. There was no forgiveness. There was only immediate punishment by public opinion. They have thrown away mercy, Jesus said. They judge as if they have no sin. They destroy a life for a moment of feeling self-righteous. They do not know that the measure they use will be used against them. Then the vision shifted to a nursing home. I saw old men and women sitting in chairs. They were glowing with a soft golden light. It was the light of experience, history, and wisdom. But the young people who worked there or visited were looking right through them. They were looking at their phones. They were ignoring the treasure right in front of them. The old people faded. Their light grew dim from neglect until they simply vanished. They discard the elders, Jesus said. They cut themselves off from the roots and then wonder why the tree is unstable. Then I saw a dark forest, but the trees were not wood. They were cell towers, they were cables, they were servers. It was a digital forest. Wandering in it were people looking for God. They were typing "Who is God?" into search bars. They were asking artificial intelligence, what is the meaning of life? The forest gave them answers, but the answers were cold. They were fake. They were mixtures of truth and lies. They seek the creator in the creation of man, Jesus said. They ask the machine to be their prophet, but the machine has no soul. It can only echo what it has been told. It cannot lead them to me. Finally, he showed me a hospital room. It looked like the one I would wake up in later. An elderly man was dying. His breathing was shallow. A younger woman, his daughter, sat nearby, but she wasn't holding his hand. She was typing a post about how sad she was. She was looking for comfort from the internet while the opportunity to comfort her father slipped away. The moment he took his last breath, she didn't notice. She was reading a comment. I felt tears running down my face. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "It's too much. I can't fix this." Jesus turned to me. The sorrow in his eyes was replaced by a strong, burning determination. "I am not showing you this to make you despair. I am showing you this because they are asleep. They do not see the chains. They think they are free because they can see the whole world in their hands, but they are prisoners in a cell without bars." He pointed to the horizon. I saw a massive tower rising up from the earth. It wasn't made of bricks. It was made of data, of glass, of flickering lights. It reached into the clouds. Millions of people were gathered around the base of this tower. They were asking it questions. What is truth? Who am I? How should I live? And the tower answered them. It gave them answers that sounded good. It gave answers that made them feel justified. It gave answers that required no sacrifice. But the answers were cold. They build new idols, Jesus said. His voice sounded like distant thunder. They ask the creation to tell them who they are because they have forgotten the creator. They seek wisdom from algorithms that have no heartbeat, and they wonder why they feel empty. They are building a God in their own image, a God that demands no repentance, only attention. I watched as people in the crowd began to fall. They didn't die physically, they just went gray. The light inside them flickered out. They walked, they talked, they worked, but there was no life in their eyes. They had become numb. This is the great numbing, Jesus told me. My enemy does not need to use war to destroy my people. He only needs to distract them until they forget how to love. He offers them a world where they never have to be bored, never have to be silent, never have to wait, and in doing so, they starve their souls. He turned to me. The urgency in his eyes made me tremble. "Thomas, you must return. You must tell them that the screen is a veil. Tear it down. How? I asked. I'm just a firefighter. They won't listen to me. I don't have a platform. I don't have followers. He showed me one last vision. It was a simple wooden table, a dinner table. There were plates of food, simple bread and water. A family sat around it. There were no devices, no glowing lights, just faces. They were looking at each other. They were talking. They were laughing. I saw the energy flowing between them. It was warm, real, and human. And in the center of that table, though they couldn't see him, Jesus was sitting. He was laughing with them. Here, he said, I am found in the breaking of bread. I am found in the eyes of your brother. I am found in the silence where you can finally hear my voice. Go back and tell them to look up. Tell them to put down the idols of glass. If they do not wake up from this trance, they will sleepwalk into a darkness they cannot escape. He placed his hand on my shoulder. The heat of it burned through me. It seared the message into my soul. Go, reclaim the table, reclaim the silence, reclaim the human face. I wanted to beg him to let me stay. The love radiating from him was the only thing I ever wanted to feel again. But the pull returned. It was violent and fast. I felt like I was being sucked through a straw. The golden light shattered into pieces. I woke up with a gasp that hurt my throat. The lights were harsh and fluorescent. The beeping was deafening. I was in the intensive care unit at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. It was February 15th, 2024. I had been in a coma for 3 days. My wife was sleeping in a chair next to the bed holding my hand. Her face was lined with worry. Her eyes were red from crying. The doctors said it was a miracle I wasn't paralyzed. They said it was a miracle my brain was okay. They talked about seatbelts and airbags and luck. They showed me the x-rays of my broken ribs and my bruised lungs, but I lay there staring at the ceiling, and all I could see was the gray mist curling around the wrists of the nurses, the doctors, even my own family. Since that day, my life has changed. I retired early. I don't watch TV anymore. I threw my smartphone in a drawer and got a basic flip phone. My friends think I've lost my mind. They think the accident messed up my brain. They ask me why I'm so hard to reach. They ask why I don't like their posts. They ask why I'm not connected. But I know what I saw. I see it everywhere now. I walk into a coffee shop and it's as silent as a tomb. Everyone is hunched over, feeding the gray mist. I see parents pushing strollers while staring at videos. They are ignoring the miracle of the child right in front of them. I see people getting their morality from social media trends instead of ancient truths. I see the invisible strings jerking people into anger. I see the black sludge of insecurity eating at our children. I see the plastic flowers in the garden of our culture. I see the people trapped in the echo canyon. I am telling you this because the warning was for now. It wasn't for 10 years from now. It is for this year. The great numbing is happening. We are forgetting how to be human. We are forgetting how to hear God because we are terrified of silence. We are building a tower of glass and calling it progress, but it is a prison. Jesus wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. He is waiting for us at the dinner table. He is waiting in the quiet moments. He is waiting in the face of the neighbor we ignore, but we are too busy staring at our hands to see him. Please, if you are hearing this, put the device down. Look at your wife, look at your children, look at the sky, break the trance. Turn off the notifications, find the silence, read the book, touch the grass, the fire is burning and we are asleep. Wake up.